Hello, everyone. Welcome to another SIU Alumni live chat here at noon. I'm your host, Caleb Hale. I'm the Director of Communications for the SIU Alumni Association. And we'll just get right into it today. We've got our guest who I'm bringing up on screen right now. This is Fred Martino. He is the new Executive Director of WSIU Public Broadcasting here at SIU. The station is celebrating its 60th anniversary this year, but I'm going to let Fred introduce himself to our audience here. Tell him where he came from and what he's learned since being here. Welcome, Fred.
Thank you very much, Caleb. It's great to be with you. Thank you for inviting me to do this. It's something that we do a lot of these days. We're doing a lot of virtual meetings, but we're doing more in-person ones now too, which is kind of nice. But this is a great way to meet a lot of people all over the world. So that's pretty exciting, and it's really changed the game in broadcasting because it allows even small stations to routinely talk with people all over the world. It's one of the biggest changes in my career. I've been in media for more than 3 decades. I started in commercial media, working as a news anchor and a reporter, mostly in television. And after that experience, decided to get into management and into public media. And I worked for about a decade as a news and public affairs director at the NPR and PBS stations in Grand Rapids, Michigan for Grand Valley State University. And a little more than a decade, I worked at New Mexico State University, working for the NPR and PBS stations there as a director of content. And I was in charge of a lot of marketing and community engagement work, all programming, as well as news and public affairs, which has been part of my life even before going to college myself, working in student media. So I have a real passion for that at the K-12 and the university level, and giving students the opportunity to excel in media. You know, Caleb, today I even got an email from a student in New Mexico. One of the big success stories we had there. He was a young man who was a senior in high school and came on as an intern with us. And while he was an intern, which is just amazing to me, to show how far technology has come and how much more advanced the students are today, particularly in technical skills, in a semester period. So really from January through May, he produced a full-length documentary, almost 30 minutes. And he emailed me today and wanted to see how things were going in Illinois. And it's really gratifying to hear from students who you've given an opportunity to. And I'm thrilled to be here at WSIU, where we have this incredible history of giving great opportunities to students and seeing them succeed. This week, we're doing a lot of interaction with the student media, and I'll talk more about that coming up. But for folks who are watching this, many of them are going to be familiar with the fact that in recent years, WSIU has grown its footprint, so that's also exciting. We cover about 2/3 of the state in television and many other states that surround us. And with our several radio stations, we cover a large portion of southern New Mexico. So thrilled to be here and continuing this proud history of broadcasting and really now an expansion of digital work at WSIU.
Yeah, and WSIU, well, the NPR brand has, and SIU have a pretty strong association through WSIU, and I think it's kind of it's somewhat unique to have a public broadcasting arm or affiliate be connected with a university as well. That's just kind of a different element to the whole thing, and I think a lot of people around here have always associated it with somewhat of a learning opportunity. It's a real hands-on learning opportunity, and I think it's lended its strength to WSIU's radio television program through the years as well. But let's talk about it. You're celebrating the 60th anniversary. You're coming here 60 years in. What have you learned about the history of the station and your time there so far?
That's right, 1961. That's when a WSIU TV was launched. So 60 years ago. It came 3 years after the launch of WSIU Radio, which is not uncommon that many universities that have radio and television stations, radio, as you might expect, comes first, then television. WSIU TV would be early in the game in terms of university licensed television stations. So there is a really long history. It's exciting to be at a place where you're talking about more than 6 decades now of television. And as I mentioned, there's such a long history of student involvement. One of the things that's been exciting to me is coming to another university with a student television newscast. That was the case in New Mexico for me. And to see that work here is really exciting. And it's been in a different form, as many people watching might imagine, during COVID. So it hasn't been as frequent and it's been recorded. But we're getting back now into more in-person work, more live work. And so this will be changing as COVID dissipates, and fingers crossed. We're all hoping for an almost return to normal, if we can call it that, in the fall. I really hope that's the case because certainly working on the 60th anniversary, we would love to do more in-person visits with people too. So out in the community, as well as here at the station, I'd love to have a community open house. So folks who haven't been to the station before can come here and see our facilities, which are really fantastic at Southern Illinois University Carbondale. We have a very nice, large television studio and a great radio operation. In years ahead, these are going to get even better with some new construction that's planned and has been supported and been talked about for some time now at the university. So that's really, really exciting too. But the biggest change, as I mentioned earlier, in 60 years of broadcasting is that digital is such a big part of this now. We are, of course, active online with webcasts like this, with podcasts for radio, with news updates online, both audio and text. And we have been in recent years streaming PBS programming very soon. I'm excited to say this is one of the first things that I did when I got here. I met with PBS and with our digital team here to get the pieces in place so that very soon we will be streaming our broadcast signal as well. So folks who have reception troubles will be able to use their PBS app on their computer or their Roku or whatever streaming device they use, smart TV, and they'll be able to stream the actual broadcast signal in addition to what they're already doing, which is a lot of on-demand viewing of television, which, as you can imagine, Caleb, is growing exponentially. We're seeing that only in a few years, on-demand viewing will exceed live viewing. And if you're like me, Caleb, and a lot of the people watching, maybe that in your household, maybe that's already the case. I know it is in mine, that I do a lot more on-demand viewing now than I do streaming of a live signal or watching a live signal of over-the-air television.
Right. And I think those kind of things are important, especially when you consider how, I would say, charitably diversified the media landscape is out in the digital space, and not always for the better in terms of the quality of content that you're getting. But to have something on the level of a PBS affiliate on demand, along with the rest of the content that comes throughout there, I think that's a fairly important place. That's a fairly important flag to put in the ground, I think, especially these days. But I wanted to ask you, over the years, you've worked in both private and public broadcasting over there. How, I guess, what's been the trajectory of those two things over the years? You probably worked in one longer than the other, but I mean, how do things diverge, and how far apart are they these days in terms of goals and uh, um, just their general day to day operations?
Well, that's a really good question. So, the biggest thing that I will say in terms of the change that has affected both public media and the commercial media is that there is a need for more local programming. This is absolutely essential. And you talked about a trajectory, which is a great word. It's happened along with the increase in digital. And there's a very good reason for that, of course. Uh, for folks who want to watch national programming, they can get national programming now in a lot of different ways, right? I mean, and they can get it on demand, and they can get it from different platforms. They can get it live and on demand as well. So local media organizations have to provide local programming that you can only get from your local broadcaster. So you're seeing commercial stations vastly expand the number of hours of local programming, particularly, I mean, most of that is, of course, news, because that is the big uh, source of local programming in commercial television. On the public side, we're looking at more diversity in programming than ever before. So, news and public affairs will always be an important part of that, but we're doing different types of shows too. In fact, coming up this summer, we're partnering with another Illinois broadcaster, public broadcaster, to air a show called Backyard Journeys, where it really gives people who want to do a staycation in Illinois uh, a chance to learn about all kinds of attractions in this great state. So, and it's all done in the field. There is no studio work in it at all. It's all in the field. And a lot of it's outside, a lot of it's outdoors. So everything from local wineries to cultural attractions to restaurants, places to stay. It really is an incredible program that gives you a travelogue as well as part of history. We're also going to expand our news footprint too. So one of the things that I launched immediately that we're underway, it's underway right now, is planning to do an unprecedented number of candidate conversations. Some of these will be interviews, some will be forums with multiple candidates. We have our primary at the end of June, so we're going to be doing them ahead of the primary, starting in mid-April, all the way to the end of June, and we'll do them again in the fall. And I hope we'll be partnering with some other Illinois public media organizations to do some of the statewide races in the fall. We have a gubernatorial race, and of course, we always have uh, senatorial, congressional races, federal races, where we can partner to work on those together, and we may even do some partnering on questions before voters, where we can do informational programming. So, public media gets you into that, in-depth coverage of issues, half-hour or hour-long programs where you can really immerse yourself in a candidate's background or an issue in a way that is much more rare in other forms of media. And
Right.
this is something that I launched in New Mexico and was probably one of the most successful things that we did, because a lot of people told us, hey, if I didn't have that forum, I would be really uninformed when going to the polls. I wouldn't know enough about the candidates without that service.
Yeah, and I think that's important for especially for midterm elections, because in the national narrative on those is usually about it being a referendum on whoever is currently holding office or which political parties has the favor. It's true to some degree, but you really do miss a lot of the day to day. What are the actual things these people are going to be doing that is going to impact my life? And you don't get that from the national media, and that's why it's important that you have this available. You have these types of um, logs, interviews, whatever they are. You have them on the record here. And back when I was previously at the Southern Illinois newspaper for years, and we did partner with WSIU from time to time, particularly around election season, on doing interviews, smaller debates with some of the local congressional candidates and Senate candidates, the state offices, things as well. So, I mean, that was pretty much the only partnership running to do that kind of thing, because I don't know that um, your commercial media necessarily has the time to devote to those types of things with other demands on them, and that's something that squarely falls on public broadcasting and the support it receives.
Yeah, to me it's a vital role. We do a lot of things that are important, a lot of things that people enjoy or value. I look at the candidate forums and some of the news and public affairs that you can only get from public media as things, yes, that people enjoy, yes, that are important, but more than that, that they're a responsibility. We hold a public license, and I look at those things as a real responsibility of broadcasting in general, particularly public media, because it's the saying you hear very often: if we don't do it, no one will. So it's filling an unmet need, and that's why public media was created. That's why we have this special place where we have a broadcast license from the federal government, some amount of funding from the federal government, and then we raise additional funding through donations from people who give to us, who become members, and of course, businesses who underwrite the programs and the announcements they get to recognize those that level of support. It's called an underwriting announcement as opposed to an advertisement, because there are strict federal rules that govern the content of those, so that they really are a funding announcement, not an advertisement. So,
Right, and the Alumni Association, it does underwrite some of the programming for WSIU Radio, and
thank you.
I know well. You can't, you have to write an ad for them, unlike any other space, just because of those restrictions. But
Yeah.
in the end, I think that makes this model all the stronger for it, because it does get funded. well, it does enjoy a large share of funding strictly from the public. It's not advertisers. It's not anyone who tends to get a vested interest in news being drawn one way or the other. It is the public at large. Uh,
Well, and and the way I look at it for this issue, if looking at it from the role of whoever is doing the underwriting, um, it's an excellent way for that organization to support its community because in many communities across the country, the only locally owned broadcaster now is the public media organization. Most commercial media, radio and television, has been taken over by national companies that own many um, uh, broadcast properties all over the country. This is particularly the case for television, and uh, do not have a local. The owner does not have a local presence other than they own that station.
right.
Their offices might be in New York or Chicago or somewhere else. Their main offices. So many times that means that they're not as connected in the way that a locally owned organization like this one is.
Yeah, and we underwrite as well because we know alumni. This is a way that alumni get a lot of news about the local area as well because alumni they love SIU, but they also care just as much about the region as well because they spent so much time in it. So yeah, they want to know what's going on in Carbondale, what's going on next door in some of the neighboring communities too. They're still curious about that, and I don't know that they know they know SIU and they know WSIU is a brand that they can go to, or as a source they can go to get that information because you don't necessarily know where to look on your local TV markets as to what station services what region in there if you don't necessarily live there. But if you have a public broadcasting affiliate and it's just conveniently attached to your alma mater, then that's something else where you can go for good information.
Absolutely, and I'm not surprised to hear that about the alumni because this is such a special place, and it's why this is my virtual background in any of these talks and meetings that I do. It's one of the most beautiful college campuses in the country. It is truly a treasure. When I came here for the job interview, I saw it mostly from a car because I had a limited amount of time. And so when I moved here to walk that more than 2 miles around Campus Lake and to walk across this campus, uh, it's like you're in one of the best state parks in the country. It's just gorgeous.
Right. So like many programs that people don't know, I think the next major capital project that will be done at SIU will be renovation and overhaul of the communications building. WSIU will obviously be part of that. I know you've had to shift some things around already as the pre-planning stages of construction are underway. But what can you tell people what kind of is what's the future of the operation going to look like just from a space standpoint once it's done? Do you have a sense of that yet?
That's still coming together because the plans have been in development, have changed a variety of times. Um, but I think one of the things from a technology standpoint that we're very excited about is a newer building will certainly allow us to look at how do we better use this type of technology that we're using today. Because again, um, public media always has a limited funding for programming. This helps because it obviously it allows us to cover our entire viewing area uh, through these kind of platforms, and we still will always do traveling to be on the ground. But for interviews, it's a wonderful way to do it. People are more available because they don't have to travel down here to a studio, or vice versa. We don't have to travel to them. And then the costs, of course, become prohibitive if you have a very limited budget. You can't do that kind of work at the same capacity level because of all the hotel and the gasoline and mileage on the vehicles, etc. So the new building, I know, will allow for better, um, essentially studios in offices. I laugh about this because we have some folks here who already have done this on their own, setting up, ring lights at their desk to light themselves beautifully, having better microphones at their desk so that they sound even better than the microphones that have gotten quite good built into computers or webcams. So we'll see more of that, and that digital technology expansion is really important for students too, because they're going into a world where even if they work at a newspaper, of course, they're going to be multimedia. They're going to be probably doing a lot of digital photography, maybe video too, maybe podcast, or video and audio. So that's going to be part of their lives as content creators, whether they're working in journalism or in creative services. It's going to be a big part of what they do, and it allows a reach and an immediacy that we've never had before. So it's really exciting. Because on the flip side, besides the reach and immediacy, as you know, even something like this also becomes a historical archive. We some folks are watching this right now live, but there'll be other people that can watch it on demand.
Right, and I can vouch for that, coming from a former print journalist who's set up his own camera and microphone here in his own office today. It's going to happen. I think in almost any area that you work in today, but especially in media. So, Fred, I'll give you the final word for the day. If there are any closing thoughts you want to leave us with before we head out.
The closing thoughts that I'll leave folks with are really crucial. We are so grateful to everyone out there, alumni and others, who donate to public media. We could not do this without your support. I talk to a lot of people. That's another reason I'm anxious to get back into these in-person visits. And when I meet people, even if they're public media fans, many folks are surprised at just how crucial, when we talk about the budget, uh, corporate underwriting and donations are. I think a lot of people have the misconception um, that the federal government pays most of the cost of public media. Unfortunately, that is not the case. They do provide important funding. Um, in some cases, states and universities, just as this university does, provide important funding. But you have the power in public media to make a difference through your donation, through estate gifts, which are very crucial and something we're going to be talking more about, because this is what's going to make this sustainable long term, no matter what the political winds are. If people take ownership of their public media organization and make that donation, make that investment, that's what's going to make this sustainable. And it drives us, it makes every day important to us when we come into work, and we we are so grateful to you for doing that. So thank you.
All right. Well, Fred, thanks for taking some time with us today. I know our alumni who tuned in, they'll find this informative, and the ones who'll find this later will find it informative as well. But you take care. Good luck in the future on the construction, on the programming, on all your future endeavors. And thank you to everyone for joining us today. And we will be seeing you next time. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.